Were you shocked
Good job,
how
Bill.
well attended?
He's been doing, see, I feel like I did something.
You did.
Scarborough Town Hall is one busy place, I'll
All
tell you.
right,
Okay.
so we're recording. Oh, here we go.
You wanna pop it over here?
So then we are called to order at 6:01 with a quorum, maybe.
Yes.
Super. All right, thanks everybody for joining. Our September 24th meeting of the Scarborough Housing Alliance. Go to item 2 on the agenda. And Eric, get those present. I guess we've got some guests. I don't know if you write down who's here, or if you'll just only if they make a comment.
Yeah.
Have them. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't catch all that.
You'll write down who's here. If
I
they
don't
make
know
comments.
who's here.
Right,
Committee members.
Committee
And,
members.
at the public comment, should people speak, you can then record.
No comment.
no comments.
No comments,
Right.
they're just listening.
Good spot, right. Third item is approval of the minutes from June 25th.
Moved.
All right, thank you, Bob. Thank you. All right, any discussion about the minutes?
I wasn't here, so I can't vote on them.
Oh, you
I
can
missed the
vote.
meeting.
You can vote. They were great. All in favor? Great. Anybody opposed to approving the minutes? All right, they are approved. Item 4, discussion. A debrief on the Marshview project. Yeah, so this item, you all remember for the past probably several meetings, we had been working on playing our role as an advisory board to town council, both on a CEA and on a potential allocation, or actually an actual allocation of affordable housing trust funds to the proposed Marshview project up on Route 1. I believe that Marshview project's been withdrawn, and Tom, if you can just give us a update on that, and maybe if there's some lessons learned for all of us or for them that we could
Yeah, so.
talk about.
So this committee did entertain that request, and the request was for credit enhancement agreement to help support the project. Your recommendation escapes me, but it was sometime late spring, early summer. The project kind of worked through its planning board process and council process. Ultimately, the town council chose to deny the request of the CEA. And then some weeks or months later, they actually withdrew from the planning board, so the project altogether. I can't really speculate as to causation, whether that had entire effect, but I think it was a factor. This committee, I think, will appreciate the importance of a credit enhancement agreement, really for purposes of securing major funding through the low income tax credit program. Again, I'm not going to speculate that was the fatal blow, but I think that certainly played a big key role. To my knowledge, the property is certainly still owned by South Portland Housing. They are actively looking, and I think they actually have the property under contract, and I'm not in a position to advise, much beyond that. The project, as we know at Marshview, has been withdrawn.
Well, that's too bad. I know one observation that I think we all had, was that it was taking a lot of meetings for that deal to kind of get through start to finish. And John, I don't know if you've got any observations from the council's perspective, but I'll say it seemed like there was a lot of roadblocks in the way for something that, as a town, it seems like we're supposed to have a either moral or some sort of policy imperative to get done, and we've got a lot of ways to not get it done.
Yeah, I think one of my learnings through this is feedback that one of the people brought forward to one of our workshops was, we are creating with our current CEA process a significant burden for these types of housing projects, because again, it really is a 6-month process that, like, again, just creates another barrier when there's already enough barriers. So that was just something that I heard specifically from them. When it comes to this decision, I think we did get a lot of feedback from residents, specifically about concerns about traffic in the area, and given that particular location. And even though they started big and then downsized, I still think that was a concern that many residents had. And in parallel, our long-range planning committee too has also been talking about the TBC district and what, you're on that? I can't remember. You're not on long range.
Yes,
You are, yeah.
yes.
And so there's been
But I
conversation there.
wasn't at the last meeting.
Yeah, so I think there's just a lot of moving pieces right now. And I think when we look historically at Scarborough's growth and especially at the growth we've seen lately with affordable housing, I think the sentiment on the council at the time was we've been doing a lot. We've been doing really well trying to drive and create new affordable housing. And so I think it's just kind of starting that conversation of like, how much is enough? And while I know CEAs are typically part of the financing requirement, are there other ways we can get affordable housing without always having to have a CEA as part of the conversation? Because that just seems to really get people spun up. There's a lot of baggage around CEAs in Scarborough, particularly because of the downs. And so I think that particular sentiment kind of brings a lot of frustration from people, even though this CEA was for a very different purpose to enable financing. It wasn't a conversation I think that we could help the community get through and understand. And so I think people just felt like we needed to kind of take a pause on growth for momentarily. And unfortunately, it was for this project, which is a really great project. And whatever goes there instead likely will create the same concerns by right.
More concerns.
Or more potentially than what this project will allow. But again, I think the council right now is having active discussions around growth, and we'll be having workshops on October 15th, November 17th. And then likely in our goal meeting, kind of come up with a plan of what we want to do around growth. And the thing I know we need to be cautious of and careful is any decisions we make will likely have implications on affordable housing. Like right now, my hypothesis going into the growth discussions is that people really want to look at multifamily dwelling and figure out, is it in the right places? How big should it be? And like any of those conversations will ultimately trickle down to affordable housing. And so we just have to figure out like how we enable affordable housing, knowing that it's typically going to be a multifamily type unit and typically in areas where people are saying they don't want it. So how do we find that right balance? I think that's the challenge, and we're going to need this group's help to kind of make sure we're keeping that affordable housing topic in the back of our minds as we go through those discussions.
So, yeah. I like to add my I went to many of the meetings. I think a small, very vocal group of people basically derailed the discussion. And that's partly, there wasn't anybody in the audience and the residents to speak up on behalf of us. So I think the council was pressured by a small group of people who were uneducated about the issues and angry about the downs and angry about taxes and very vocal and very emotional. From my perspective, that's what happened. They lumped the CAA and TIF into the downs issues. They don't understand that affordable housing and the fact that it requires tax benefits. It's the business model that's more used around the country, maybe around the world. They don't understand that. So maybe we didn't do a good job of collectively educating people.
Yep.
The other thing I think we could have done is said, listen, do you want an affordable housing, 55 units of 55 plus with no impact on the schools? Maybe there's an issue of that one way in, one way out. Yeah, it's not perfect. Would you see that? Or would you like to see a retail organization in there? Or multi-unit or multi-residential housing is going to impact on the school? You can't have, this is not a black or white environment. We live in a free market economy. We have regulations from the state, the Fed, probably the county. I'm not sure if people would be open to that. But I don't think we have communicated that very effectively either. I think that was it was communicated more effectively. I listened to some of these meetings. It was clear, but this is a group of people who already understand the issue.
I think it's fair. I mean, I think that's something I think we need to think about is like, how do we inform and educate the public a little bit more? Because if this is something that they really want. And I think that's the question is, do they really want it? And if so, let's have that education, because I get the sense that there are people like you guys here who are advocates for it and want it. But you know, I wouldn't characterize the group as a small group. I would say my time on council, there's very few instances where people show up. And when they do, you know, it's important that they listen or that we listen.
Oh, sure.
But at the same time, you know, to your point, there was nobody that showed up. And I don't know why they didn't, to say, we want this project. It's a great project, because we didn't hear that voice. And there were a couple of emails maybe that we got positively supporting Marshview, but the overwhelming voice that we heard were the people who said they didn't want it. And again, trying to balance the need to listen to our constituents, even like personally, didn't like my vote. I think it was the right vote for this particular meeting, but
Right.
sometimes we have to make those tough calls. And I do think education is a real important aspect of this, but I do think part of the conversation also has to be revisiting, where do we want it? What do we want?
Right.
How much do we want? How willing are we to spend CA dollars at like what level, right? Because again, when I look at our history, the past 5 years, we've had maybe 5 or 6 projects that have come forward. So that's probably more than any other community has done.
Mm.
And so I think we should be proud of that. But at some point, we also need to say, how much of this do we really want?
Yeah.
But I think we do that with our comp plan. And I think the people who are, I mean, to your point, I think when they're, you know, advocating against it, I think people are entitled to their opinions, but
Yeah.
not to their facts. Like, you can't make up facts
Mhm.
that aren't true. And, you know, I think we've got some pretty well established mechanics of how CEAs actually work, not how
Yeah.
fear works. And we've got pretty well established documents that say what the community at large wants.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's a real obligation for people to come out and be proponents of a developer's business plans. And so, you know, I think at some point, it's curious maybe what this group could do,
Mhm.
if there's a way to help the counselors who ultimately vote to be able to stand up to those facts. And be strong enough to say, you know, regardless of what these, you know, factless opinions are. We know what the reality is, and we've got the fortitude to vote. To know that this matches what the rest of the people outside this room aren't saying. Because they're at a soccer game right now, or they're at a swim meet, or they're at church, or they're wherever they happen to be. And they don't have the extra time to come and yell at us counselors tonight, you know?
Yeah.
I would just stop with, though it's true, undeniably, this project happened to be the most recent project and got swept into a much larger growth discussion. And I think a fair amount of the input was pretty clear that that was the opposition. But let's not miss the fact that there were some very specific articulated reasons around the CEA, and we've heard many of them before on projects that came before, such as guarantees that it's for Scarborough residents only, the fact that we require a fiscal analysis. These projects are never gonna score well, even considering the fact they don't have students for the school. Those are issues that we must contend with, and under the current funding system, CEAs appear to be a critical element, and I think we can expect we'll have similar concerns expressed right along.
Yeah.
So I don't want to kind of dismiss those, because I think we've heard them before, we heard them again, and we'll hear them again in the future.
I agree. We have to do our best to educate. Like, I was at one meeting and a woman gasped, she said, I didn't know the state mandated growth, they didn't regulate growth. People don't know the situation.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I think we have to take first of all, I should have stood up and gave my opinion, I didn't, I will in the future. But I think we need to do a better job of educating and pushing back. But to me, the format of public comment and then the discussion is not very productive in itself. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that.
I'm not sure you can educate. I mean, you can give the facts, but they're gonna believe what they're gonna believe.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think there's always
mean, do
people
we-
in the middle that could have open minds.
I mean, we should try, but I'm just not sure.
Well, I mean, we did the counselor corner before the vote. And that was our attempt to kind of have a dialogue and educate. And it was clear that the people in the room did not wanna.
Yeah, I listened to that.
The stated
It was-
topic
it
was on housing to help inform our housing policy.
Yeah.
And the conversation almost at a gate and directly to growth and didn't ever get off it.
And I think it was with Marshview as the topic for the most
Yeah,
part, right?
yeah, but again, it
But
was.
it wasn't- it was-
of the day.
Right.
You know, I wonder if people say they're against growth, which maybe they are, and you know, and I think that people are really just scared of poor people, right? And that they really don't mind growth because they don't mind the $1 million homes that keep getting built, right? So I wonder if there's an appetite for, if we're gonna have growth, committing to divvying up whatever growth we have into certain types of housing.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna have a certain number of, units, limiting the luxury homes, making sure that a certain amount are always gonna be affordable. And if a certain number of affordables don't get built, then those just go as unused.
Yeah.
Growth.
Yeah,
I think.
I don't know if that's fair,
Yeah,
but that's going maybe a little too far. But there were people who are saying we want a moratorium on any growth,
Yeah,
residential and commercial.
except.
Now, I understand in the world we live in, right? So. But I go back to, people are always gonna have some of their opinions and what, some people won't listen to anything,
Yeah,
some people will.
Yeah.
But we have to do a better job, I think. And also, maybe we need to. Bring some support into the room, because that's what they're doing. They bring a lot of people, they're organized and mobilized.
And I think, one, I just think we should be careful. How we characterize what people think about growth, because I think there are some legitimate concerns that I've
Sure.
heard about. Traffic and change, and I think when we're talking about growth. It is much more emotional than it is rational, factual, I think, and so I think. It is important for the council, in my opinion, to take a breath, listen. Use this opportunity to do some education, because we also need to learn a little bit more too, like, we don't know everything. This whole CEA thing for some new counselors, like, I've been on the council for 6 years, I think I finally get it after, 5 years,
You
so.
probably don't.
I know enough, I know enough. And so, but again, we're all,
be dangerous.
we're all
More than
putting in the
thinking.
work to do that, and so. For someone who just sees something and has a reaction, that's legitimate, whether.
It's
For
real.
whatever reason, and
Nobody
so-
likes traffic, nobody
Yeah.
likes high taxes, maybe
Yeah,
they're legitimate concerns.
yeah, so I think we owe our residents an opportunity to have. The discussion, and I do think as part of the discussion, you have to be cognizant of affordable housing as part of it, because I do think. We need to figure out like
Bless you.
what is, our comp plan talks broadly to a desire for affordable housing. But now we're like in the point of like, what do we want in the next 3 to 5 years? And how do we make sure we're specific and focused so that we can communicate that, people can prepare for it, understand it. Because again, I think right now it's just so broad that, in this situation, for me personally, again, I felt like the town has been doing such a great job with affordable housing. But at what point do we kind of start to say, like, what do we really want to see? Like, what are the specifics?
Well, yeah, and sort of, right, we're doing elderly affordable housing.
Yeah,
but not family
yeah.
affordable housing.
Yeah.
Right,
Or
and-
workforce house.
Right,
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, that's the
and-
other you could do, you could combine those two, if you give a elderly person a place to go, it opens up potentially an older home that's
That's
affordable for a young family.
Yeah.
That's a
Mhm.
message that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not so fast.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well,
We're real estate.
yeah, well,
They're not-
more or less,
Yeah.
an older, smaller home is gonna be more affordable than a bigger home.
Mhm.
Yes, no.
Well, the whole growth thing too,
Yeah,
is kind of like
just
the
don't-
non-smoking section of an airplane, right? Just because maybe we're not growing here, people wanna come to this area.
Yeah.
And they're gonna drive through Scarborough,
Well,
right? And-
yeah.
And so,
The reality with LD 1829
Mhm.
is a lot of it's gonna be out of our hands,
Yeah.
especially in our growth areas, and there's a lot of favorable things in there for affordable housing that I think will, again, take it out of the council's hands. The only thing that I think the council the only decision the council will probably ever make will be, do we give a CEA or not? That's the only thing.
Yeah.
And so I would actually love to see if the state is serious about housing and affordable housing, them like revisiting Maine Housing's approach and policy
Right.
so that it's not so reliant on property taxes. It's kind of weird because they have all of these, they have this task force for property taxes.
Yeah,
And, you know, they're trying to find ways to lower it, but the only way we can give affordable housing is by increasing property taxes by giving CEAs, and so. Like some of these things are just kind of in conflict, and we really need, I think, the state to really step it up a little bit on these things, so that way maybe it's not so reliant on local participation. Maybe there's more state help, or again, maybe there's things we could do differently in town. I brought it up before, and I know Tom has suggested it's not a good idea, but in our growth areas, should we say we want inclusionary zoning? Like, we're talking about specific dedicated housing projects.
right.
But
The downs.
yeah, why not say if you're in our growth area, we want inclusionary
So,
zoning? And we know, I think you guys probably know, in order to do that, though, there has to be some incentive. They have to be able to grow higher. Like, you can't just say you have to have 10% of your units or pay a fee. It should be, hey, if we really, really want this, like, we're gonna hold to it, but we gotta give some incentive to development so that it actually happens, because I know Portland has tried this and it's not working out. But I don't know if they've done it right, and maybe we just need to figure
And
out how
that's,
to do it
yeah,
right.
it's
Yeah.
very complex. I mean, that's part of the Downs issue. I think,
Yeah,
is
Just to be
that-
clear, my pushback on that is simply in recognition that I don't think it's a good idea to force someone to do something that they wouldn't do otherwise, and they're not good at it necessarily.
Yeah.
Right, so what I've come to appreciate, for us to make significant difference, it's really partnering with professional affordable housing developers who
Yeah.
do this for a living. They build, they own, they operate.
Mhm.
If you force someone to do it because of 10% of the units, and we don't have a housing authority or anyone to help kind of administer that, support that, I just think that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and I don't think they, as most contractors can figure out the tax issues and how to make the money on it. It's very complex. right?
But Portland developers plot their way out of it. There's an in lieu fee, and so, yeah, I'll do 10%, but I'll just write a check for it, essentially.
oh, we do that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess,
yes.
well, maybe is that the thing though, like, if we want to support them and they need local support. Should we have inclusionary zoning, and if we're getting the fees, can we use those fees as a means to support these projects as opposed to just?
But we've got to be willing to say yes to some of these projects.
Yeah.
If we're
Yeah.
gonna have this pot of money to.
But I
Yeah.
think back to the state, Maine Housing's requirements, ACEA is actually written into the current QAP.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's something though I appreciate there's importance to have kind of local buy-in by whatever means that is. Typically, it's through CEA, but in our case, we actually have
Yeah.
resources that we can put in. So that helps the bottom line financials. It allows Maine Housing not to loan or to spread their money further in the state. So I think we ought to be more actively involved in the QAP process. I think there's an open, every year they open for public comment. I suspect not many communities, certainly like Scarborough, choose to be part of it.
John, you made a statement and I'm quizzical.
Mhm.
You said CEAs cause taxes to go up.
Well, I think that's the perception of the
Okay.
community, is that when we're granting a CEA, that burden is being passed on to our taxpayers. And again, it's another one of those things that's like just difficult to explain in the moment, that, because I think and
Right.
some of us know that when you grant a CEA, it's on the incremental new value that they're bringing in, going back to them.
Right,
So it's really their taxes going back to them.
so that we don't have to
But
develop it as a municipality.
Yeah, but the perspective is like, well, again, if it was a affordable family housing project with kids, then, there is somebody shouldering that burden when, from what you said, the financials don't really work out, like some of these projects always will require some degree of subsidy, just like a single family home like mine is subsidized by taxpayers because I have 2 kids in the school, so it's
Right.
like that's kind of the way government works, but when it's a specific ask like a CEA.
How about, but are they, and I'm gonna throw this out there, because I've been doing this county stuff for 6 months and now I'm forgetting some of this stuff. TIFs.
Mhm.
Do they always go with the CEAs?
You have to have.
Okay, because TIFs, what people are forgetting are that TIFs can save taxpayers money from entities like
Yeah.
mine, the county.
Yeah.
Pretend.
No, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, we
it's
actually-
not
That
that.
was,
That's part of the education, I
that,
think.
We actually
that
just,
balance, that spreadsheet was presented.
Yeah.
And it was a net $700 or something.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. It was a positive thing on this specific, well, but nobody listened to it.
yeah,
Yeah,
Well, no.
one thing I'll say in
We don't want-
terms of understanding the financials of when a credit enhancement request is in place. I think the town has done an exceptionally good job of understanding our cost to serve. And particularly when it's a finite project, we're even better, that we know the demographic, in this
Mhm.
case, senior,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty easy. And we perfected that really because of the downs, and it's
Mhm.
obvious and simple, we didn't wanna agree to give rebate more back to them than it cost us to serve them at the very least. And we've done some truing up those numbers and very pleased to report that we're actually, the ROI is still very positive.
Mhm.
Right now, and it will be likely through its completion. That's not always the case on projects like this, and it's interesting, though there's no cost for school, the single biggest cost is EMS services.
Right.
And I think there's a bit of an anomaly. We looked at Jocelyn Place because it's a sister project. And there were some abnormally high EMS calls, and it could be attributable to a resident or a couple residents
Right.
needing extraordinary assistance. But that's what really made that ROI for Marshfield look bad,
yeah.
is the EMS piece.
But I mean, to your point, like, had we done a 50%, I think what we figured was if we went from whatever they requested,
It
75
went
to
75 to
50%,
50 worked,
it would have been a positive return for the town.
Mm.
And
or
so,
break even almost. Yeah.
but again, I don't know if that would have harmed them in their points, so if we had gone down.
Right.
So because they wanted the full 3 points, if they lost 2 points or 1 point,
Yeah.
I think
that
it's
probably
worth-
would have been detrimental.
It's
to the
worth noting
project
that
too.
that site was ideal. It scored exceedingly well.
Right.
For the
Kind of across
QA,
the board.
yeah.
So I think in spite of the fact that the 50% would have yielded 2 points rather than 3, what they asked for, I think all the other attributes, given its proximity to, you know, the services, transit, I mean, it had everything. They were looking for,
So I think, two other things with this project in particular, and I'm curious if others sort of feel this way. It felt like, this group and maybe other community groups shouldered a bigger part of the burden of advocacy for the project than would be typical. Versus the developer really advocating for the project. I didn't really, I didn't see the developer really kind of out there trying to, engage the community and,
I think they got caught off guard. They
Yeah.
had, they had
And I
experience
wonder
with
if that's a
Jocelyn
lesson
Place,
learned, yeah.
and they tracked and followed the other projects that have been successful, and not that they thought they were gonna sail through, but I
Yeah.
think it was too deep into it, before they realized they need to be stronger advocates for it, was my assessment.
Jocelyn went through that,
No, there was a lot of substantive questions around
Okay.
CAAs,
Yeah.
a lot of the same stuff, in terms of who's
Right.
benefiting, why are we subsidizing, I think those are things that we can expect we'll hear again, but in the end, the council at the time. Came up with a deal and approved it.
pretty similar.
They are,
I think.
I think that the fact
facilitation-
that the state changed the rule and
Yeah,
gave preference to townspeople, I think that was a big.
I don't think they ever changed that rule, they might
Right.
have sharpened it and been a little clearer, that really is a federal, fair housing
Oh,
requirement.
I did hear that from people.
Yeah.
They were concerned it wasn't gonna be Scarborough citizens
Yeah.
or necessarily getting the first shot.
And it'd be great to do some, looking back, who are the residents, where do they come from?
Yeah.
And we could be, there's obviously confidentiality that needs to be
Yeah.
respected, so if there's a
You
way to do it
can't-
anonymously, it'd be
You
great.
can't control that,
No, but it'd be great to kind of look back at Jocelyn Place.
just to know.
Yeah.
Across the street to just understand who actually ends up there.
Yeah.
Just,
I do think that this particular location. Again, I do think there was legitimate concern about the location, and I think. The concern will persist, whatever goes in there, no matter what, and so that's where. It's a little bit challenging, but at the same time. I think that's why it prompted the long range to look at the TVC, because they're like, there's some issues here probably. more because of the infrastructure that we have.
Yeah.
Where that particular intersection is just not
Nightmare.
suitable for a lot more development, so
Mhm.
it's not so much about this project as much as it's like,
Hmm.
we gotta fix that area to really enable what I think we all want it to be. It's just the traffic right there, the lights right there, and the way it's designed is just, it's not good. So ideally that would get fixed, but that's like not an easy or a quick fix. So I don't, kind of stuck in this like hard place of, you know, there's property there that people can build based on what's in our zoning. This project, had they chosen to go forward, could have still gone forward without town support.
Yep.
So it's not that it couldn't happen, it's just the reliance on the CEA. If that really was the fatal blow, then, you know, that's unfortunate, but like, I just feel like that particular area of town is an issue, and even what we were talking about in our leadership meeting about TVC in general, like that, the vision is TVC districts are supposed to be, you know, streetscape walking, so things are desired to be up close, but again, our residents were very clear that they didn't want something like that close to the road or blocking views of the marsh. And so, again, it's just location matters, I think, sometimes, and I think we do have to consider that, because again, had that project been, you know, where Jocelyn is right now, like I think it would have
Yeah,
been fine. It was really the fact that people were gonna be driving by it, afraid of people coming in and out. There's legitimate concerns about how people are already kind of had bad traffic behaviors in that area. Like, and so I think it's just, it wasn't, for me, that was like a big factor of why I ultimately did. support
Yeah, and I
it.
think
No, I
also,
said that too.
I think it also brought, into focus that we probably need to do better by way of commercial design standards.
Yeah.
It's not that we dictate exactly how a building looks, but I think we can be a little
build
more
the character,
prescriptive,
right?
you know, for instance, just the roof pitch rather than the
Yeah.
flat roof, putting some sort of
Yeah,
pitch on it makes a physical difference in terms of aesthetics.
yeah, especially for such a prominent location.
I also think, and this is kind of off the subject, but I also think part of the issue is what's going on in Eight Corners.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
when you start talking about traffic and that sort of thing, and you know, that's fresh in people's mind, and
Yeah,
I
they brought that up multiple
I
times.
mean, I think that's a cluster. I just don't know how the heck that's gonna work up there, but people are like, what's going on? You know, in this.
I drive through that all the time.
Right,
There will
And
be a case
actually,
study on it at our council workshop, so.
yeah,
Cause it is, I mean, again, all of that project followed all of our rules.
Yeah.
And zoning and did
Yeah.
everything that we've asked
It-
for. and
well,
so-
yeah, I mean, there was nothing we could do about it, right?
Yeah.
They-
right,
Well, that's the
Go
irony,
for it,
right? Yeah.
all that stuff,
It's,
but
and
it's
it's
the wrong
yeah,
place.
if somebody doesn't like the looks of something, that's
Oh,
their
well.
opinion. Like,
Yeah.
people think that living in the Downs is like rats in a maze. Some people like
so
that.
don't
Yeah.
buy a house
Yes,
there.
right, so,
Yeah.
you know, Eight Corners is not exactly the most beautiful neighborhood, that little, that, it's a. I think it's gonna actually, once the trees are up, I think it's gonna enhance them.
Yeah, it's a transitional area,
Right.
probably the appropriate use.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Well, hopefully you prove me wrong.
But,
Well, that's the, I mean, we
You know,
talked about that as
That's
well, like,
beautiful.
how, I'll admit, the first few times I drove through the Downs, I was like, ooh.
Mhm.
But if you've driven through there recently, now that it's,
starting to settle in.
yeah, and trees are starting to grow, and
Right.
it looks. Like I had a very different reaction, and when I brought my parents through to look at it, cause we had driven through it with them before, they're like, is this the same place we went through last time? And I'm like, yeah, it is, it's like starting to like have a real identity that is less
Yeah.
about being in active construction all the time.
But I just think, you know, Eight Corners, right, the school's gonna, you're gonna have more kids going to that school.
Yeah.
You know, in the morning while people are trying to go off for work, and you got two other corners there that are
Yeah.
right for retail development.
Yeah.
And what's gonna happen there and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Whatever, I mean, that's what growth is.
Yeah,
Main roads
And
worse.
we have to figure
Yeah.
that out, but the other issue, I think, was obviously traffic.
Mhm,
And timing played an impact in that because it's summertime,
mhm,
so a lot of that
Yeah,
is just
yeah.
vacations.
yeah,
You
Yeah.
know, and is it still morning and nights, is people just coming up from Saco River driving through because they don't want to pay a toll?
mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If it was November, it might not have been that big a deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, who knows,
Yeah.
but,
We've also have the
Yeah.
new lights that. I think for people, like, if you're on Route 1, you're going, but if you're coming from the side.
Yeah.
You're sitting a little bit longer, so I
Yeah.
think that is a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
That's a little bit fresh in people's minds, so I think you're
Yeah.
right, I think timing was also,
just coming out of broad turn, and I was waiting to get on and take a left, and it finally turned green and turned right. The guy in front of me couldn't even go.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's some system stuff has to work out, but
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
sounding
super
like
smart.
residents.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
but these are all,
There's an
they're all
opportunity.
real
to get
concerns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
But we don't live in a magic world where we can dictate
Yeah.
everything.
I sit in that same light, by the same token, and Richard, you're there all the time too. I can tell you the other day I was a bit late for work, later than normal, so I was probably 20 minutes of 8 or something heading this way.
For the record.
And I live on Saratoga Lane. I barely got into Broad Turn because the traffic was backed all the way up to the Dusty Crossing intersection, which is abnormal. In less than 7 minutes, I was through the light. I was
Yeah.
shocked. So
No, yeah.
it senses demand, and at that time of the day, it's
Yeah.
about flushing traffic through.
Yeah.
Where the
No, I
demand
understand
is.
that.
You must have been in 2 or 3 cars in your queue and it
Right.
said, "Well, you can wait, because
You
I'm
can
But it's
45
traffic
minutes."
is-
He doesn't have anything.
It's more traffic than it
today.
was
He can
100
wait.
years ago, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think I think the point is like, and I think you guys are,
Yeah.
like, I love this conversation because it's like, it is complex,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, you know,
That's the thing.
I don't think it was a light decision by the council to vote this down for the CEA. But trying to weigh all this complexity and to your point, timing, I think timing is probably
Hmm.
the biggest factor here,
Yeah.
given everything else that was
Timing,
happening.
location.
But, yeah,
Besides that.
these are ongoing conversations.
Yeah.
Right, you're always gonna have people that don't want growth.
Yep.
They wanna build a fence around it, which is, you can't do,
Mhm,
and there's gonna be growth,
mhm.
and it's a,
For this group, a rationale put forth by several counselors was, yes, our comprehensive plan is very clear in terms of affordable housing aspirations. And essentially what it says is that 10% of all new housing stock should be affordable. Well, we've actually accomplished that, and I think there are many counselors that were pleased and comforted by that fact and used that in their rationale for saying no to this one.
Yeah.
So we should be aware of that if we need to up that or change
Yeah.
that,
Right,
or.
and the opposition did say, we've done our part as a town.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
can't,
that's true.
and
It's
that's,
a true
that's,
statement.
that's
Yeah.
true, I mean,
Mhm.
all this stuff is true
Yeah.
to degrees,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess maybe part of that is people, and maybe this is kind of one of the things we'll talk about, this might be a good segue.
Please.
Is not. Please, is being able to articulate what the benefits of affordable housing are. Right, is it charity or is it actually good for us, right? Do we actually get something out of it? Is it something like, you do like eating broccoli? Or is it something that, oh my god, maybe there's a benefit? And if it turns out there's a benefit, maybe it's not so bad to do more than you need to, more than you have to.
Is there any research, empirical evidence
Well, I
on the topic?
don't know. I don't know, you're just supposed to do it. But I mean, they say, they say there's impacts on the schools, positive impacts on the schools in terms of,
Who's
bullying.
they?
Yeah, who's the?
The professionals,
Google.
Google, Chat
AI.
But in terms of bullying, in terms of diversity within, the classroom, in terms of, things like that, and so, but I think that might be something for this group to explore is, we sort of take for granted that affordable housing is good. But what's good about it?
But what do we mean by affordable?
Well, there's
I
definitions,
keep
right?
going back to that.
We don't need to explore
because-
that, I mean.
Yeah,
right?
but
And-
just, let me finish my statement here is, I mean, there's affordable housing, which is, below, what is it, below 60% of whatever.
Yeah.
And then you got workforce housing, which I know that there's a lot of economic backing for that potentially with employers and whatever. And what I think is affordable as a real estate broker working with first-time home buyers is not what you're talking about as affordable. So there's all these elements of what do we mean by affordable? And in my own personal opinion, I find it so frustrating that we have this whole I call it the missing middle out there. Where, like, my daughter lives in Chicago, where it's cheaper for her to live there than to come back and live in Maine. including buying property, believe it or not. But it, you know, so it's like, so what are we doing to address that too? You know, I will give you a little secret, just don't say you heard it from me first. There's a bit of a shift going on right now in the market.
Yeah.
This is Jean Marie talking. This is we're starting to see in real estate a bit of a, what we call a shift. Where houses are now all of a sudden sitting on the market longer. We're seeing price drops. So stay tuned.
Brian, I wonder, to your point of kind of surrounding the conversation with the benefits of citing academic research and scholarly work, and I guess
And the.
by my characterization, I'm
Poo-pooing.
yes. I think I'm sure there's a mountain of evidence,
Right.
and I'm not dismissing that it's important, but I wonder if it might be more persuasive to make it more relatable to people.
Yeah.
I think about my personal circumstance of a 30-year-old and a 27-year-old. And frankly, I'm speculating, most of us around this table couldn't afford the house that we live in today.
Yeah.
If we had to buy it today, we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So, relatable, by that I mean, where are kids gonna go?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would just add, my parents live in Virginia and they wanna move to Maine. But they can't afford to live here and there's not enough options, so they wanna be near their grandkids, but
Sounds like a nibble on your house.
I don't wanna build a ADU. And so.
You don't.
I want them to come see me.
We didn't go up 20.
Yeah.
Well, that's an option.
But I think that's like, there are
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
gaps. I do think too, though there are economic benefits, right? Like, I think that's the.
Yeah.
Angle to explore the economic benefits of, having people who live here, who can afford to live here and can contribute to our local economy and. A lot of what we talk about when we talk about the lack of housing in town that's affordable, whether it's AMI affordable or affordable. Is we have a lot of people who can't choose not to work here because they can't live here, and so. I always think about when we think of growth and the concerns people have is like. How long it takes to wait at Hannaford, and I'm like, every time I go to Hannaford, there's usually only, even on Sunday, one or two people working the line, so it's
Yeah.
like you have to wait because there's not enough people.
It's not- yeah.
And do the self-serve.
Wait till
Yeah.
Marvin.
But I know on the police side, we've
Yeah.
heard from them, recruitment's an issue, we've heard
Yeah.
from Maine Health.
Yeah.
That they're struggling
Right.
to.
Yeah.
recruit
And that's
for
why
Maine
the
people.
state is promoting housing.
Yeah.
It's a supply and demand.
Yeah.
To some degree, you need
Yeah.
more, so that.
It's all the committees in town that have
Yeah.
trouble getting people to volunteer, right?
Yeah.
It's.
In terms of making it relatable, this committee, prior rendition, I don't know that any of you were on the committee at the time. They really put a face with a name, and we happened to use, I guess they were generic, but, no, we had a couple of police officers and fire people, fire persons and teachers. That just to kind of put a face with a name, and these are the people we're talking about. When you
Yeah.
talk about 60, 80, 100,
Yeah.
100 joints in AMI,
Mhm.
it's not very relatable, but when you talk about
Right.
starting salary of a police officer or a teacher,
Right.
much less a service worker,
Nurse,
a nurse, these are in fact the people that qualify
Yeah.
for what we're talking about.
The little that I know, the formula doesn't work. To qualify for affordable housing, because the house is too expensive. Even if they qualify at the whatever percentage, they still can't afford the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
That's right.
there's very little in that market,
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's not gonna get fixed anytime soon. They're not gonna change that formula
Right.
anytime soon. So how do you bring down the price?
I've
house.
closed
And
6
good luck
houses.
with that, because developers are making good money,
Right.
Mhm.
right?
There's no incentive to do it.
And they have
Other
demand
than
for those
stuff that-
houses, the more they're
And also
developed.
product.
Maybe the market's gonna correct a little bit.
Well, I
You know,
I certainly,
we'll see,
so I've
you know.
sold I've closed on 6 properties this year. Every single one of them was cash.
Yeah.
And every single one of them was someone from away buying a second home.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, to that point,
With
For-
white-
Good, no
for-
impact
for-
on schools.
yeah.
Yeah.
For us, if we wanna be thinking about affordability in the short term. If we're not gonna plant a whole bunch of houses over the next 2 years, 'cause we're not. Are there other things that we could be doing to affect affordability for people that live here? Right, and is that, energy costs, is that renovations to their homes that have leaky windows or leaky roofs or.
How about helping people with reverse mortgages,
Yeah.
those sort of things,
Keeping people high interest rates.
you know?
Well, you know, are there things like that that we could be doing, introducing programs to, you know, leverage the funds that we have and. You know, do some sort of, just line of credit, or if it's a revolving loan program or something to
You know what I,
help people, you
you
know?
know what I'm seeing too, and you mentioned that, and I'm sorry if I'm getting a little off, but there are a number of elder, because I work both ends of the spectrum in my job. And I do a lot of elders who are selling also, or their estates. And there's views on part of some elders, and maybe rightly so, because I don't really know their full financial, that they're worried about the capital gains.
Yep.
Yeah.
At the
well,
end
it's
there,
not
when
worth it to
they,
sell
so
that.
they're sitting there,
They're better.
because they know they're better off
That,
staying
yeah.
there than doing the capital gain,
100%.
so. It's
Yeah.
One thing that would be interesting to explore, Brian, to your point, like, we know you can use TIF funds to help do some certain type of lending for businesses as they're trying to form. Gorham does it.
Yep.
So can we use, I don't think it's a qualified use, but it might be a legislative change. Like, could we look into,
For residential purposes?
yeah,
Yeah.
to support affordability, like to create a program
Yeah.
that allows people to apply to use funds for things like fixing leaky windows or
Yeah.
doing some sort of.
Yeah,
Like that.
I suspect they probably could qualify already.
I
think
think
so?
they do.
Yeah.
Well, I know
So
there's,
you're
a-
talking about home repair or assisting with
There-
down deposit?
my question is, can we use TIF revenues to create a program
Oh,
to help with affordability issues?
Checking, I think
in
it's
Scarborough?
Auburn has some kind of program to help investors that buy, like multifamilies anyway. I don't know if it's for residentials, but. You know, it's kind of a low income thing that they
Yeah.
can go in and repair windows and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. I don't know a lot about it, but I know it existed 5 or 6 years. ago.
Well,
John, one of our limitations is we don't have professional staff or any staff to kind of
Administer it.
do this.
Yeah.
And that's not to say we can't do partnerships with maybe a neighboring town that has a housing authority that actually has professional staff, but I do worry about adding systems that
Right.
require
right,
oversight,
Yeah.
an ongoing oversight and some expertise. You know, as it is now, I'm anxious about
Yeah.
what we've already committed to, frankly.
You know, if you're talking about critical home repair, to keep seniors or AP in their homes, Habitat has a program.
yeah,
Okay.
So maybe you can team with Habitat,
Mhm.
to do that.
And you have to be cautious about debt, because it's debt.
Mhm.
You know, it may not necessarily help them because they're just borrowing more money.
Yeah,
So,
it's at least an option,
but it's, yeah, like, yeah,
or something that's forgivable over time or.
whatever, yeah, I mean, if you can figure out how to get the grants.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't cost a ton.
Yeah.
the feds are so forthcoming with
Yeah.
money right now.
I mean, if we have a choice of giving this money to, you know, somebody to go put up. I don't know, 60 units that nobody's gonna vote yes for, or we could help. You know, there's people that wanna, you know, help our own residents, you know, maybe that's a way to attack that.
I'll look at that and report back.
But we're not gonna get.
And what
a lot
about
from the
ADUs,
feds.
promoting
These days.
in-law, granny home?
Yeah.
Apartments.
Yeah,
We
So
allow
look
them kind of everywhere and it's frankly gonna get even easier with some state law changes.
Mhm.
yeah, maybe to the extent that there's like a down payment that's needed for something like that. we can help.
Insurance companies
Yeah,
are
it
right
used to
right
be
now.
hard. Yeah, it used to be really.
Insurance companies are right now for
Mhm.
Yeah.
grants, because they're getting hammered by all the profits they're making.
Yeah,
When is the last time the towns looked at the in lieu fee for affordable housing?
Probably 4 years ago.
Because again, are we, the fund that we have that this committee helps to use, like, do we have all the qualified uses that we would want to be able to use it for? Should we be making adjustments to what it can be used for?
We can look at that. I think it's pretty broad. List of qualified uses. Most of the money hasn't come through the traditional in lieu fee.
Mhm.
It's come by way of negotiations for contract zones. We've used the same kind of philosophy to negotiate, to say,
Mhm.
yeah, you wanna build 148 luxury units, we want 10% of affordable, to which they say, I don't wanna build affordable, we say, well.
Then you
Create
Hand
50,000
over
acre,
the-
and-
yeah.
Mhm.
but we haven't seen many of those requests come forward.
Mhm.
There's also some negativity around contract zones.
Yeah.
Brian, you had mentioned something about, being interested in collecting some demographic data.
Yeah,
Want to talk more about? that?
yeah, as one of the things that came through with the Mars Street project was, and I think all of these growth conversations is this notion that, when we allocate money to these projects, it's going towards building housing for people that aren't from here. And, that plays well in the newspapers and that scares away, things, scares away projects. But I got to wondering whether that's true. And I got to wondering like where all these people come from that live in, these new apartments that are being built and these new low income housing and all these apartments. So, I was curious about actually just collecting some of the data of, what are the zip codes that people are coming from? And if it's true, okay, let's validate the fear and if there's any downside to people not being from here when they move here.
How do you collect that?
Yeah,
I think we could just maybe ask the landlords.
they get applications, right?
Yeah, they get apps.
Whether they save them or not, whether they wanna go through the
Yeah,
town.
start
phone,
with
you know.
So are you specifically interested in the affordable housing?
We could start with those. I mean, it's kind of a small set.
Yeah, we can start with
kinda
the
go
one
by
by
one,
efforts, right, so.
South Portland Housing.
Yeah,
has that.
Yeah.
Right, so they have that, and I think they even mentioned that one of the meetings, we could get that information.
Yeah,
And it would just be, it wouldn't be names, it's just.
yeah, it's just,
Just where they came from?
yeah,
Anything else related
I
to
think that's, I mean,
demographics?
it always gets more intriguing, it's always interesting and more data, but I think for this, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it that,
BTU.
what is like the hypothesis you wanna understand?
So, are we moving people in from Scarborough into these new
Okay.
homes that we're building, or are we? moving
Well, that
people
was a
in from-
concern that's brought up and you didn't
Yeah.
have answers, right?
Yeah,
Nobody had answers, so at least it'd be.
at least we'll get an
Yeah.
answer.
Right.
The hard part is,
They're all from Brooklyn.
yeah, well, there were people, like, I remember there were some emails we got from people where they were like. We moved out of Scarborough, but then we wanted to come back.
Yeah.
And so they moved in, so this data would say,
Right.
well, they're from outside, when in
Yeah.
reality, they,
Maybe the question is, what's your connection? Do you have a connection to
Yeah.
Scarborough?
yeah.
That's a little harder.
Grandchildren.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, and again, like, I know they're,
The developer might not be able to answer that.
Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
how many people do you know from this? No.
Well, they did a really good job with the facility over here because they did have all that data from the people.
Yeah, they do, they
They-
get.
And they promoted it when they had their grand opening.
Yeah.
And they brought
Really?
people in, like the gentleman that moved there that ended up passing away, I think this year or
Yeah.
something. They really promoted that he wanted to come back here, he had to sell his
Yeah.
house, he had some tough times, and that's why he was coming back.
I think it was
He wanted-
unique. That person was prepared to share their personal story and
Right.
connection to town.
Yeah.
But you're right, it was moving, it was.
Yeah.
pretty powerful.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, so
The other one, and this is an outgrowth of a conversation back in your last meeting, was the interest in scheduling some focus groups. With the development community and the developers, and then maybe lenders as a separate conversation. I wasn't part of that, so
yeah, we talked about
I
that.
think that was just to find out why there isn't anything affordable. Why they're not building anything affordable. Right?
Yeah,
Or we need money, that's,
yeah,
because they don't need to.
is that something you'd like me to spend some time to see if I can pull that together? I anticipate with the developers, they may be a bit guarded with my competitors, but if we really wanna get some detailed information, it might have to be a smaller group, more private setting.
It'd be educational for me. I know that,
I don't know why they can't
hear these guys
do
talk.
these general numbers, or I'm looking at.
Well, I-
It depends who you're invited, right? Depends the audience you're looking for that. If you're looking for the housing authorities and the developers collaboratives and the Avesta housings, or if you're looking for the Risberas and the.
My guess was it
Landry
was for the
French
private
and the-
developers,
Oh, yeah.
why are,
This is,
why aren't they?
this is where I go back to the inclusionary zoning, because we're a desirable community, people will want to develop and build here. So do we just need to take a stricter position on that, and if people don't wanna build here because they don't wanna do 20% affordable. Then they can go build somewhere else, like,
Right, so we don't take, they can't buy us off, basically.
So there would have to be some parameters, right? Project of a certain size, maybe.
I don't know, I'm just saying, like, why don't we just go out strong and say. If you wanna develop here, then we expect 20% affordable housing and,
There's no end.
There's no financial.
yeah. And if you don't wanna develop here, then that's fine. Cause I think we're desirable enough that I would hope that. Some people would wanna do that. I'm just trying to.
That should be-
throw out-
Well, you don't know that
Should
until
be
you talk to them.
Yeah, let's,
Well, we wouldn't, I wouldn't ask them, that's the sort of thing the town needs to decide, not the developers.
yeah.
If we really want to
Yeah.
build
You would have
affordable
to
housing.
say, yeah.
Right, and nobody's gonna say yes.
There comes the growth problem.
Right, so
But-
it depends on how serious we are about
Yeah.
affordable housing.
And you may take some.
Well, I'd want them to steer the.
And maybe that would slow down growth. too,
Yeah.
So maybe that would have a good impact.
I mean, I think it'd be interesting, we've got some of the developers that are doing work right now, they work in multiple jurisdictions, right? Whether it's Risbara or Vesta, or Developers Collaborative, you know, they're working in Portland, they're working here, they're working in Gorham right now, they're working in Westbrook. Be interesting to hear what's hard about here, what's easy about here, if, you know, if they had 10 acres of land in each of those places, where would they choose
Mhm.
and why? Yeah,
I'm more interested in, you know, how expensive a house can they build? You know, can you build something that's considered affordable?
oh, yeah.
And.
Oh, it's here, it's not.
No, I know.
Yeah, just the green space starts you off.
I know they can't, but I wanna hear from them why they
And then
won't.
why?
Well,
Yeah.
because they're businessmen.
Yeah.
And they're trying to maximize the profit.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to ask these questions,
Yeah.
because we know the answers.
Yeah.
The answers are they're trying to maximize their profits, and
Right.
unless
Well,
they're not told they have to build affordable housing, they're not going to do it.
So how do we help?
It would just
Yeah.
because
Well, that's why you have CEAs and.
And that-
TIFs
well-
stuff.
Doesn't work?
we can hold
I
them
know,
to the
that's
requirement
what-
the town has without giving them a financial alternative to get out of it.
Yeah, I think that's the big.
That's what we could do.
Is getting them. They're just taking advantage of the financial alternative. You don't
Right.
put that on the table. They have to build it if they
Well,
wanna build
yeah.
it.
Or make the
Right.
financial alternative that much higher so that we have a fund that actually can do big things with, because right now it. Like that fund, probably, how much money do we have in the,
That's not.
$755, I thought.
yeah,
So you wanna take some of their profit?
But let's take Gateway Apartment.
Good luck with that.
So
Well,
Gateway Apartments-
they're doing it now. They're giving the financial
Yeah, but you wanna take more.
relief that, whatever you call it.
My numbers are gonna be off, but Gateway Apartments is, 225 units, they would have had to produce at 10%, 22 or 23 units. Forgive me, I don't exactly recall, but they gave us over $500,000 in
Right.
fees. I'm certain that money leveraged 4 times as many units, 5 times, 6 times in terms of grant support for at least 3 projects that were at least 50 units apiece. So my counter to that would be getting the money's not a bad thing, and just because the leveraging aspect, we get more further to our goal. And we've got an affordable, or excuse me, a professional developer who knows how to operate these, as opposed to us trying to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah.
That would be my counter.
If we can continue to build it, if we can get the town people behind it. So if we can't build anything, it doesn't matter how much money.
It's true.
Yeah,
So that's a good point. And John alluded to that part.
That's
Over
right.
over the course,
Yeah.
over the course of the fall and into the new year, the council is gonna be having a growth discussion for the public to be part of. I would advise this committee to be aware of that and to find the different parts of that discussion where you fit in and to be an active participant in those discussions.
Yeah.
so it'd almost be interesting, I never thought about this, but if they're paying that in lieu fee, it'd almost be nice if. That came with, or if that sort of put in a bank, some affordable growth permits. You know, if that kind of helps in some way to guarantee that some units would get built.
Well, technically,
So if that
I mean,
was,
our current system.
there's just no limit on affordable, so.
Well, there hasn't been a project that could not move forward because of
Because
the
of
lack of road
roads.
permits. Not to say it couldn't happen,
Yeah.
but hasn't.
It's all other
Happened.
issues. Huh. Well. Well, so all that is kind of under the idea of what to prioritize as efforts for this upcoming year. And, yeah, then I'll lump in the next thing, which is modifying our affordable homeownership program, which I think we still have some work to do. I think outside of these meetings, but we've done a bunch of work to, I don't know, it's modernize, I'd say, our affordable homeownership program that we have. Is it all at the Downs, Tom?
It is,
Yeah, so
Yep.
we've got 10 units over there.
yes.
Um,
And the one modification we talked about, and Bill Shanahan on the committee, I think, was tasked with and.
convenient.
Hey, he's not here, we could task him with something.
Yes.
else. You might recall we had one of the homeowners in that program, wanting to sell, but the
Mm.
finance
Yeah.
was such that it didn't make sense for her at this moment. And she's not allowed to rent the unit at this point.
Yeah.
And so one of the modifications was potentially amending those agreements to allow rental situation with some parameters,
Yeah.
of course. We didn't ever finalize that. I think there was genuine interest in
Yeah.
considering that, but we haven't advanced it beyond.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have that on our next agenda and maybe bring it to a head.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would reach out to all 10 and try to modify them, but for those, anything new, and certainly for those that have a desire.
Yeah.
I think we could
So
get
have that in the can.
Cause it, just appreciate this is something that gets recorded at the registry and.
Right.
I just think it could be exceedingly difficult reaching out to unsuspecting homeowners saying, what? Who are you? What do you wanna do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Want me to sign what? So.
Yeah. Great.
And we have the kind of mechanism all in place to do affordable renting? Like what the price would be and all that stuff and how to administer that?
Sorta.
Kind of
Yeah,
done.
we'll find a
Close
way to do it.
enough, yeah.
Yes, we do.
okay.
Well, then our first number 7 on the agenda
Sweet number 7.
is, is, so we've got term limits now on our committee service. That's great. It affects me, so I'll be off the committee in December. So,
Unless.
well,
Yeah,
I'm not unless another.
I'm sponsoring
Oh, God.
great.
Yes,
I'm sponsoring an amendment at our next council meeting to remove the term limit.
Oh.
But I don't know where the council is gonna go and how they're gonna feel.
For all committees?
Mhm.
Yeah, 'cause it's-
Well, it does, but that lose all the knowledge on all those.
Right,
committees
we-
that you
well, we're
have.
seeing
that-
And people are losing
Yeah, I don't know if that's a great idea.
I'll go speak in favor of that.
How about a system where it's stacked?
Yeah, and we're.
So
we're at
it's
a
not all at once.
This
Boom.
year, it's like 12 people that are coming off that are experts in their field, like
We
Brian.
have
that-
3 on the land board,
Yeah,
25 years.
3 on the land board, some on long range, like. Transportation, I was surprised not to see a person on there from transportation, but. Because we're in the process of losing a lot of great talent, I think. It would be wise for the council to reconsider that, so I plan to. Put that forward as a recommendation at our next meeting and it may not go anywhere, but if it does, then yes, you guys need to talk about leadership.
All right, yeah, so-
you
transition.
get it. before it's in-
Well, even if we don't, so it'd be great to have somebody thinking about being a new chair of this committee, so invite folks to think about that. Happy to talk to you offline about what it's like to run this ship.
John, there's another alternative to, like what the chamber does. If you can't get it passed, chamber does it where you come off for a year and then you can come back on.
Yeah, they can, I think that's. the way
Retreads,
to do that.
Retreads.
Yeah.
You can certainly apply for a different committee.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but you can, after 1 year, you can do that.
Well, I mean, the
I didn't know
checks and
that.
balances.
Yeah.
Yes, chairmanships.
You would still have to reapply, so it's not that you're just.
Right, so it's not a lifetime limit.
Yeah,
So-
it's, you would still have to. Apply, show interest, because maybe you're at the point where you're ready to do something different, or go to another committee, because there's other
Transportation
committees.
sounds like.
Yeah, so again, people will still have to apply.
Alright.
So
Super.
comments.
So with that, we'll go to our other number 7, public comments.
Rebecca, 112 Maple Ave. I personally would love to see the ADU support get passed. I feel like, 1829 did a lot to make ADUs more possible, but the building cost is still so exorbitant for most homeowners right now that it's prohibitive, and you'd honestly be better off buying something new because at least it's a low down payment, whereas construction costs are not. Banks don't like construction costs nearly as much as they like first time home buyer or in general residential home buyers. So I think that situation is highly prohibitive, even though the regulation is improving. So I would love to see something happen around that. I also think that people tend to be more pleased with infill as long as it's done like in a responsible way where like, yeah, if you build something really ugly in the front yard, maybe not, but I think it's easier to make some of those ADUs attractive and fit the neighborhood than it is to plop down large developments in a place that didn't previously have anything. There were a couple of other things that I was thinking of, but I don't know if I remember them.
Would you like to join the committee?
Why?
Oh, you did?
Like 3 months ago and I haven't.
Oh, send me your.
Yeah.
I know.
Not sure how the process works. I'd be interested, yes, I do remember. I did some work with Quality Housing Coalition that was policy research, and I'm about to join Maine Redevelopment Land Bank doing like semi-similar things. I, in my meanderings, found that there was some interest in towns that had mixed success on doing like a vignette to see what people actually want and what the visualization of that would look like. I think personally, I wasn't in favor of the Marsh View project, which is a shame because I am generally in favor of housing. But I had transportation concerns around that light, and I also was really struck by the fact that it sounds really good that that area should be walkable, and I'm sure that it should be, and it would be fabulous to have a true downtown in Scarborough. But when it's a standalone project like that, and it's like, well, this is a walkable area, it's not. I mean, it's not. There's a sidewalk maybe, but it's not actually a walkable area. You can't walk to any, there's no grocery store you can walk to. There's no like real restaurants, like there's some, but it's not very dense. So I would personally be really interested to see what it would look like to, you know, have development over time in that area and then have more of like a mixed use port. Like,
Yeah.
do you get to a point where you have walkable shopping?
And what does it take?
Truly
That's-
walkable neighborhood.
That's what our long range planning.
That was the
committee
fifth, that was the
working
whole
on.
fifth, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
like, I would
Yeah.
love to see broader education around that aspect.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there is a lot of no in the community. And some of the yes might come more in terms of we would like to have downtown. What does it look like to do that and where can it be accomplished?
Yeah.
I was also really curious, maybe this doesn't belong on the record, I don't know. But I have been curious, I came into Scarborough kind of at the tail end of the Downs. But it feels like there's a big scar on public trust that relates to that. I would be really curious to see if there's some kind of a plan as to how to address that with the community and rebuild that trust, because it feels like that's gonna be a blocker for a while. And I don't know how to.
Mention one thing with the return on investment, right? People are asking for that might help.
Yeah, no, I think we've done that every year. Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
We hear it, we
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
it. The reality is they've done exactly what they said they were gonna do, and they kind of exceeded expectations.
So I think there were misaligned
Yep.
expectations. And so I think maybe the hope is once this current phase of like actually having the shops and things that may draw the public in or amenities that people will experience, that might be what's needed to shift the narrative, but you know, again, I was under the impression, because I was similar to you, came kind of at the tail end of it, or didn't pay too much attention to it when it was happening. And I was under the impression, just like a lot of people, that we were gonna get all this stuff. And that stuff never came or hasn't yet come to fruition.
Takes a while.
I know, but we're impatient and I wanted it yesterday.
You must be a millennial.
I must be a millennial,
Yeah.
and so I think it'll be interesting to see how time heals that scar, because sometimes that's the only thing that we can rely on. I
Yeah.
think.
I think the edge would have been a big drawing factor on that if that had been built.
Yeah,
One, or like having them donate land for a school, like there are a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities that just,
That would've got
again,
more.
they are a business, like as we're talking about, like there's no obligation, you know, someone sent an email to me today. Talking about, you know, the good old days where local businesses would actually give back to their communities and help, and. You know, that, I was just thinking about that while we were talking about, like, is there a public-private partnership? Again, with some of these big employers that we have in town, like Maine Health, IDEX. And others that are really also saying that they want. Employees to live here and
Oh,
housing,
yeah.
like, why can't they help us? Like,
Yeah.
it shouldn't just be on.
Real workforce housing.
Yeah.
Company
Sponsored by-
housing, the old
That's
days
right.
of company housing.
Yeah,
Build some roads.
so I think it's just, you know. Things have changed and they're different
Yeah.
now, and, you know, while I would love to see charitable contributions. You know, I don't know if that's a realistic expectation,
Should be,
should be.
It's a
I agree.
cultural,
Yeah,
it's not happening.
yeah.
I got something. There's the old, just.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got, so my comments aren't as put together as hers, but Andy Blanchard at 112 Maple Ave. Just random notes that I came up with over the course of the meeting, but I wasn't sure if I could chime in or not, but Efficiency Maine has like some programs about that help with like replacing certain things that might be good to look into as far as like window replacement and stuff. Hannaford is good late at night. There's no.
Yeah. Self-checkout?
Don't go on set.
There's no one there.
Yeah.
Early morning too for us old people.
What difference does it, what difference does it make for like, I don't know, I guess I get it where people wanna know the information for who lives at these apartment buildings, but truly what, like, why does that matter if the people are moving from Scarborough and creating another vacancy in Scarborough for someone from New York to move into their old house?
Yeah.
Like literally, that's the same
Same
exact
thing.
thing, but I guess if they wanna know the information, it helps them feel better, I suppose.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I support helping the little guy, like the little window replacement thing seemed kind of cool with that. And then on the comment on the like the 20, upping it to 20%, it seemed like a good idea because it seems like Scarborough is pretty desirable and is honestly in their own little real estate bubble for the you know. I don't know, then the thing Tom brought up about leveraging for having professionals to do the affordable housing makes sense, so honestly, this whole problem seems above my pay grade.
Bingo.
Any comments?
Yeah, I'm Richard Hayes, Martin Avenue, just to be open to this gentleman's comments. I'm proud to be of one of the accused small group loudmouth people.
You're right.
I think our group is a lot larger than small. We are not against, as we have stated several times, we are not against growth. We are against the growth that has been happening. And we've asked for a moratorium to have conversation, and John has reiterated tonight that there are some meetings set up, which I think, and our group thinks is a good first step. That's all we've asked for. It's a community voice. The survey that's going out, I've recently heard in the previous surveys that out of the number of households in Scarborough, that 600 responses make it statistical correct. I can't say for sure that we have 600 voices in our group. But we have a lot more than a few. I have heard, and I'm not on the council, I was told that the council received over 100 emails against the CEA and I don't know whether John will develop that or not, but that on top of our registered group. So I think it's important that it took the path that it took, that the council said we will agree to pause and listen. I think that's what our group is about, and we are appreciative of where we are at this point, and hopefully there will be constructive meetings. One last comment that I'll make with talking about who's in the living in the various subsidized housings and the concern that Marshfield was, it didn't have to be Scarborough residents. The gentleman, I'm not sure, I think his name was Ben from Southport Housing. He told me to my face at the last meeting that I attended here that they were developing because someone within our group had asked the information about how many residents from Scarborough were in fact in Jocelyn Place.
Okay.
That information never came forward from them, so apparently it is something that can be known,
Yeah.
but
They did actually share it with us, and I want to say it was
11
11.
Jocelyn Place,
Yeah.
11 of 60,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
so 11 of 60 was
Mhm.
Scarborough residents.
That's current census,
Yeah.
who's living there right now, nature of the businesses that they come and go.
One of the concerns obviously with that and why that question was asked was the Scarborough residents asking to support the project with taxes. It's more it's easier to swallow if you're helping a neighbor, if you will, and as opposed to somebody from New York or somebody from Washington or wherever, or even Bangor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a easier pill to swallow if they did it, hey, I'm helping someone that is close by.
the hard part for me for that is though, like, again, I go back to,
Well,
which
yeah,
is hard to prove, like,
yeah.
people have connections here, so like, if my parents wanted to move here to live in a house like that, to be connected to me, that's a benefit to me and the community, or anybody else who's in that situation, so I feel like just Scarborough within Scarborough doesn't tell the full story, because we don't know who these people are and what attachment they have to this community. It could be they don't live in Scarborough today, but maybe they lived here for 20 years, moved for 10 years and came back and qualified for this home, and that's a good thing too. And so I think that's the hard part. And to your point, like, does it really matter like who these people are? I think that's just the challenge with that, and that's also illegal for us to mandate
Yeah.
that they're from Scarborough. Like, we can't require
I'm
that.
just
Yeah.
responding.
Yeah, but no, we appreciate the,
Yeah.
that's public comment.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah, thank you.
Real John.
I know the rules.
You know the
I
rules.
just.
Please, John.
Everybody knows the rules. All right,
We do
and I
have
think we've got one
online.
more online, Denise. Hi Denise, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Denise Hamilton, 2 Rod Road. I was a few minutes late getting on, but got on just as the comments were made about the small group of people, and I, along with Richard, am one of those people of that group. We are by no means small, or at least not by my definition of small. We have 250 to 300 people involved in our group. There are 150 people at the public hearing. There were another 100 people at the second reading. with 100 people or more who have emailed in. We're not small. We have voices. We wanted to be heard. We were heard. And we thank the council for listening. We're not against affordable or senior housing if it's in the right area. Dunstan for senior housing is not a good area. There, in just 2024, there were more than 50 crashes in what would have been the TIF district. That's a lot. And when you're looking at seniors who have slower response times, that's not only putting themselves in danger, but the other people on the road. Affordable housing and senior housing in the right area is good. As much as I hated seeing the clear cutting in 8 Corners, 8 Corners would have been a much better area for senior housing than in Dunstan. We're not against growth. We're for thoughtful growth. We don't need to be the fastest growing town in the state of Maine. We just need to be thoughtful about it. At the Council Corner live event that both John and April hosted, yes, moratoriums were discussed not only by the taxpayers, but by John and April as well. You know, with the LD 1829 coming around in 8-9 months, we need to look at the growth areas and the zoning in Scarborough to see how that's going to affect our current areas. You know, you're looking, we have building heights of 40 feet that we can build. Well, LD 1829 says you could be asked to go 14 feet above that. Do we want 54-foot tall buildings, whether it be on Route 1 or Holmes Road or Payne Road? No, that's an eyesore. We do need to look at our growth areas and our ordinances in zoning to see where we need to make adjustments before LD 1829 comes into play if it's not overturned. And we need not wait on that. And last but not least, and this has been said by numerous taxpayers in meetings after meetings after meetings, is this town needs to have transparency when requested by the taxpayers. Taxpayers have requested information specifically about the Downs that's not been provided. We hear the lip service of, oh, but they've done what they said they were going to do, and we're ahead of, you know, where they said they would be. Show us. Stop with the words. Show us. Actions speak louder than words. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. We appreciate your comments. Great. Anything, let's see, the last item on the agenda, unless anybody else has anything else?
Well, I think somebody needs to be responsible within this group to go to those growth meetings. I was gonna go anyway, so I'll represent the group. That's okay.
It's important.
Yeah.
I would just add that I know you talked about priorities for next year.
Yeah.
I think your number one priority should actually be to participate in these group conversations and not let us lose sight of the affordable housing implications of any decisions we might be making, because again, as we've talked tonight, it's complicated, and decisions we make or may consider, like, I personally want to understand what does that mean for affordable housing,
Yeah,
but I'm not an expert, and you need this group to participate and like wave your hand and say, wait a sec, that's about it, here's why.
yeah, and I'll just, you know, and just as we're attending those, just keep in mind too. I know we do talk a lot about affordable housing, but we are the Housing Alliance, so we are here for all housing.
Yeah.
So there's a role for Jean Marie's workforce housing. There's a role for ADU housing. There's a role, yes, we sort of have purview to think about how we fit into the whole balance of the whole spectrum of housing in town.
So that growth meeting is the second meeting in October, right?
October 15th. That first one, just to kind of prime you, is really intentionally gonna be a lot of establishing baseline. A fair amount of, comprehensive plan and zoning and kind of planning. And development process.
Yeah.
We think that's really important to kind of establish a base of understanding before we get into what we actually do about it. And
When's the second one again?
I think we're thinking the second meeting in November.
for 17.
Yeah,
November 17th?
yeah. And again, just to set expectations, like, that's not a decision-making meeting so much as it's
Workshop.
a workshop. And then
Is
what
that,
I envision is when we get to council goals, we'll start to get more specific about like what
right,
council wants to do, and that's in the January timeframe.
and those are online.
They're online.
Broadcast, but.
And we're certainly mindful of the speaker's comments about LD 1829. There's rulemaking that needs to occur sometime over this fall, probably just in the new year. That's gonna be very telling in terms of actually what it means to us. And we'll likely have a good 6 months to be able to react, to at least deal with the implications of that.
Yeah. And I think, from some people's comments, I hear fear about this, but I think there's also an opportunity to embrace it and see,
Yeah.
what opportunities there are to achieve our goals. As a community to maybe finally start meeting our comprehensive goal plans and goals and, although I think there are some naysayers and, there are also some yay-sayers out
Yeah,
there.
well, I think
Yeah.
that's an interesting point, because I don't think there's gonna be yay-sayers many around the table. Most will be
Yeah,
more fear of what it's gonna
Yeah.
mean and the negative effects, so. I think you're right, that voice needs to be part of the conversation.
And that's what I would love to see personally as a counselor. I would like to see everybody get a little bit out of their own echo chambers and sit with other people who have different opinions and have a conversation, because I think the best policies are going to be things that take into consideration all points of view. And so, again, I would encourage you guys to be actively involved, and if you know people in town who feel the same way you do, get them actively involved, and for the Denise and Richard to like talk to these people as well to kind of understand their perspective so that we can hopefully come up with something that everybody, like, we won't come up with things that I know everybody will be happy with, but.
No, 100% happy.
Yeah, hopefully everybody can get a little bit happy in some of the decisions we make.
Well,
Not extremely happy.
I think as counselors are asking and sort of polling the public, I think there's a set of feedback you can get if you ask, what are your concerns
Yeah.
with these ideas? And there's a set of feedback you can get with what do you like about these
Yeah.
ideas?
Mhm.
And there are two very different sets of feedback. And I think, if folks can start looking for the positive
Mhm.
and assembling like what positive
Yeah.
overlap there is, we can maybe get to a different place than we are now.
Agreed.
So let's find more yay sayers. All
Or
right,
also talk to the naysayers.
Motion.
well, the naysayers,
Motion to
yeah.
adjourn.
Oh, adjourned. Great, thank you, everybody. Great to see everybody.
Thank
Thank you to the public beyond.
We'll see you next
Public.
month.
You guys live on New.
God willing.
I hear you. Yeah, I'm in,
God willing.
on Owens Way down, Elmwood. And then we got, that's